Hey YouTube. This video is the first part in a series that will cover the subject of child indoctrination through religious fundamentalism. There is a group out there that is trying to get their young earth creationism taught alongside what science has to offer in schools. Now I want to show a video clip of a scientist named Lawrence Krauss who offers his opinion on the subject. It's from a YouTube channel called Big Think, which I highly suggest subscribing to.
That somehow we should teach kids both ideas that the Earth is 6,000 years old and that it's 4.55 billion years old, which is what it is. If you think about that, somehow saying that, well, anything goes, we shouldn't offend religious beliefs by requiring kids to know, to understand reality. That's child abuse.
I agree with Krauss that if a teacher were to present a logical fallacy alongside a scientific truth and call them equal, would essentially mess with the minds of the student, and therefore would be an abuse of their power. But I want to expound on what he has to say because I really think it begs the question that how do you get a student to accept a fallacy over truth? I want to give an example of how fear has a tendency to override reality. Because the answer to that question, how do you get a student to choose a fallacy over truth, is through fear indoctrination. I bring my son to a park every once in a while, a local park. And at that park is this large play structure where at the top of it is a rope tunnel. And when you go through the rope tunnel, it connects another play structure. The first time that I brought my son to this park, we climbed up to the top of this structure, and he was a little cautious at first, but he followed me across the rope tunnel. And we did this a few times, but then suddenly he started refusing to go across it. Absolutely refusing. And it was because when he went across it, he was getting scared because he was crawling across this rope tunnel where you could see through the rope 15 feet down to the ground, and the ropes around him, he didn't feel secure in it. He didn't think it was safe. It didn't feel safe to him, even though he successfully went across it. So each time we went to this park, I spent a little bit of time trying to help him conquer that fear. I would show him personally. I would personally demonstrate going across the rope tunnel and explain to him that if I can go across it, then surely him, as someone who's much smaller than me, can as well. But this type of logic did not work on him. He simply refused. And one time when I was trying to convince him, he interrupted me and he said, "Dad, I can't go across the rope tunnel because I'm wearing a coat." And then he hightailed it out of there and started doing something else. And I thought it was fascinating because his brain had just created a logical fallacy of which he used to excuse himself from doing something he was afraid of. So that's a good example of how fear has the ability to override reality. You can just accept the logical fallacy that is based in fear and use it to excuse yourself from accepting reality. Now, with this in mind, I want you to watch a clip from a recent debate of Bill Nye the Science Guy and Ken Ham, the founder of the Creationist Museum. I highly recommend watching this debate because it's extremely interesting. But here is the clip.
This is a simple question, I suppose, but one that actually is fairly profound for all of us in our lives. What, if anything, would ever change your mind?
Well, the answer to that question is, I'm a Christian.
So if you watch the debate, which I highly recommend doing, during the question and answer section, Ken Ham seems very well prepared for pretty much all of the questions. He quickly identifies the question as a certain type and then has a prepared answer ready. He quickly answers them. But with this question, what would it take to change your mind? It seems to totally disrupt his momentum, and he has to regather his thoughts. And then he says, the answer to that question is, I'm a Christian. So what he did was he used the Scotsman's fallacy, which he essentially said, true Christians don't change their mind, which is not true. But so he used this logical fallacy to excuse himself from accepting the evidence, saying, I would never change my mind even if you proved it to me because I'm a Christian. And if you notice, that response is very similar to what the response that my son gave me to excuse himself from doing what he was afraid of. So the answer is Ken Ham is afraid of accepting proof. But the question is, what is he afraid of? And the answer is on his website. Under the subject of eternal torment, it says, God's goodness doesn't negate eternal punishment in hell. It demands it. So what it's saying is that Ken Ham's beliefs, according to Ken Ham's beliefs, God cannot be a moral entity without eternally tormenting a certain group of people. And if you read Revelation 21:8, it says, the unbelieving will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. So of course he can't accept reality. Because if he accepts reality, according to his beliefs, he will become an unbeliever. If he accepts proof, if he accepts an idea that is contrary to his worldview, he automatically becomes an unbeliever. And according to his doctrine, according to his religion, unbelievers are cast into the lake of fire and sulfur where they're eternally punished. So fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism, has the ability, religious fundamentalism uses fear to override reality. And then the religious fundamentalism gives its adherents a bunch of logical fallacies of which they can use to excuse themselves from accepting proof. And one thing that all fundamentalism has in common is some sort of fear doctrine, whether it's Armageddon, whether it's hellfire. It's always something that scares the living daylight out of you. And they all have that in common. So with all of this in mind, I want to show you an array of images that the Watchtower, a Bible and Tract Society, has been showing children for decades.
The fact that animated videos capture the interest of little ones and can be a powerful teaching tool. Children can learn so much during their formative years. The lessons they learn at a very young age can make an impression that lasts a lifetime.
The next video in this series will consider specifically the Watchtower and how it indoctrinates children into believing that staying on the inside of their religion means life and going on the outside means death. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and share this video with anyone who you believe may find it resourceful.